Okay, everyone, let's grab our seats. It's officially 8:30 p.m. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. Happy holidays, everybody, to a special edition 4th of July weekend AA meeting. What better place to be sober and in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? We got to give a quick shout out to our man that's behind the scenes on our YouTube channel, Jason, and let's thank him for all the hard work he does, because let him know that he's well appreciated. Pushing close to 360,000 views. Well, that's pretty powerful. This message is being carried, and people are hearing a message of hope and recovery, and that's what this group's about. And be mindful. See us after the meeting if you want to do. We have a ongoing treatment centers, H&I commitments. It's a very powerful thing. If you want to come out on a Sunday night and take some time out of your life and possibly give somebody a little moment of hope and a reason to keep coming back and fighting one more day, see us after the meeting. With that, we got the world's greatest Canadian chairperson. Let's give Kara a warm welcome, all the way from Canada.
Hello, y'all. I am from Canada. Welcome home, everybody. My name is Kara, and I am an alcoholic. Hello. So good to see everybody on this holiday. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. and speaker at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, reliance, and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be re-recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name?
Matt, I'm alcoholic.
Hey Matt, welcome.
Hi, I'm Mike, alcoholic.
Hey Matt, welcome.
Carolyn, alcoholic.
Hey Carolyn, welcome.
I'm Jamie, I'm alcoholic.
Hey Jamie, welcome.
John, alcoholic.
Hey John, welcome. Welcome everyone. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? In the back?
I'm Dave, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey Dave.
Friday nights at 8 o'clock, burning desires up at Lake Tony. Fire starts at 7. Get the grill going, bring your hot dogs, hamburgers, through fun fellowship.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, Doylestown. Coffee is on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purpose of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked big books and CD donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, Doylestown, PA, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. Now I would like to introduce a good friend of mine, Brian, and he'll come up and read Just for Today, Prayer Recovery. Let's give Brian a warm welcome. Woo!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy 4th of July. Good to be here tonight. Good to be sober. This is Just for Today, a prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can. Dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And with that, Will is going to come up here. Will's going to read our AA preamble.
I am Will and I'm an alcoholic. Alcohol Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now I have Meredith to come up and read the 12 steps to recovery.
Hi everyone, I'm Meredith. I am an alcoholic. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. I'm going to welcome Kara back up so she can introduce our speaker.
The seventh tradition states, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book CDs, events and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce the speaker as a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Let's give Debbie from Virginia a warm welcome. Woo!
Good evening. My name is Debbie. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I was born in Newport News, Virginia, and I think I was there until I was about 2 months old. And I just found out we didn't move directly to Pennsylvania. We went to New Jersey for 2 years. So now I can say I'm like 3 states in, like I've traveled. But anyway, I am grateful to be here tonight, and you guys have a lot of energy. It's good energy. I mean, my bedtime's 9 p.m. I don't, like, I could do that at 8:30 a.m., so maybe we'll talk. Our home group, Valley Forge Freedom in the Park is 7 p.m. Monday nights in Valley Forge Park. It's at Washington Memorial Chapel. And yeah, maybe we could talk them into an 8 a.m. meeting and I could do what you guys do better. We'll take group photos and all that stuff. Because, I tell you what, when I first got sober, I wanted none of that. I was not your bar hopping, have a good time person. I was always just drinking alcohol to function well. Because I didn't know how to show up without something in my system. So I couldn't really drink in front of you the way I wanted to drink. I'd have been found out from day one. So I just wasn't that girl, although I did not go to the bar if that was the agenda for the evening. It just wasn't my go-to. More like draw the curtains and drink away, you know, and not let anybody know. I used to smoke the same way, smoke cigarettes. It was in the garage, smoke my brains out, and then you open the garage door and all the smoke comes pouring out. But I'm not a smoker. And then I would have this hacking cough when I went to the bus stop with all the other moms. And I figured, you know, I was about 100 pounds at that time, and I just wanted them to allude to the fact that I actually worked out, when actually I just worked out my arm to mouth, you know, in the garage without the food. So yeah, that was the way I did things. But yeah, I am grateful today. I feel like I have two stories, basically. I have a 15-year sobriety, the beginning of a new way of life, and then I had a 10-month relapse. And it was the greatest gift, really, that I ever got, because I was too scared on my own to give up that one thing that I was holding on to. And the relapse made it possible because I was too proud to just bring it out into the light, so to speak. And I had no choice after the relapse but to give God everything. And the way I did that was to give AA my everything, because I didn't trust God at that point or know God well enough at that point to give him that. But he blessed me with the alcoholism to bring me to my knees so that I would give it to him. That's the kind of God I believe in today. You know, I used to ask questions like, why does God let this happen? And why does God let that happen? And you know, you stick around long enough and you stay close to him and you do what that 11 steps says to do. We saw through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. You know, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And it actually starts to happen. It's a pretty cool thing. But I also know that that was one of the most powerful things I knew would happen that I wanted to avoid. Because something, you know, the big book says deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And I knew that, but I also knew that if I got real close with him, he'd see and address some things that I wasn't necessarily ready to let him address, you know? And again, that gift of alcoholism, it gave me no other choice, which is really, really a blessing today. I am grateful for that. So my original sobriety date was November 26, 1992. And I actually met Dave in Penn Foundation in 1989. I still have my step book that everybody signed in my step book. And we were talking earlier before the meeting, and he said, I don't think anybody's alive, anybody that signed that book, you know, which is sad. But I had every intention when I left Penn Foundation to stay sober, because I had watched Father Martin's Chalk Talk when I was there, and it was the first time I heard about the disease of alcoholism. And it was the first time it wasn't about me just trying to be a better person because for some reason I was a derelict. And I actually heard that this was a thing. It was a thing. So I had this physical component. And I was psyched when I heard that at Penn Foundation. They had a little meditation room, and I was like, this is it. I got this. And you know, for those of you familiar with the big book, if you're a home group member here, I know you are. If you've been around long enough, hopefully you're in that book. You're eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know. But it said self-knowledge avails us nothing. It's like Roland Hazard. He had the best of the best, and he had everything he needed, you know. But what I didn't know was lack of power was my dilemma. I couldn't carry this stuff out. Although self-knowledge, although the information is eye-opening, it's amazing. It is half the battle. It's just on its own. It will avail me nothing. You know, I needed the power. The needed power wasn't there. But anyway, like I said, I had every intention of staying sober after Penn Foundation. It took 90 days for that to go down the drain, because that was the beginning of God showing me what I did hold between him and I, my plans versus his plans. So I picked up a drink when I was 13, I think, 12 or 13. My parents got divorced when I was 5, and my brother was 6. My mom was pregnant with my little sister, and my dad left and got married right away, and then had a baby with my stepmother. But I remember at that time it was just, it was pretty traumatic, you know. So when I first got sober, I used to try to figure out psychologically why I was an alcoholic. Oh, it's because of the divorce. Oh, it was because of the way they got divorced. Oh, it was because of the way they raised me. Oh, it was this or that. That might have driven me to drink at age 12, but it didn't make me an alcoholic. It just drove me to drink earlier, sooner rather than later. My body has an abnormal reaction when I put alcohol in it. I have an allergy. I didn't know anything about that. But at age 12, 13, my mom had gotten remarried to my stepfather, and my stepsister is 1 year older than I am. And we were kind of the dynamic duo. So she started experimenting with some things, and I just followed in her footsteps, because I just wanted to be like her. I loved everything about her. She was pretty, I just wanted to be her. I wanted to be anybody but me. I really didn't like the package God gave me. And I remember that even at 5 years old, just thinking, looking at my life and going, I don't think this is what I was envisioning. Like, even at 5 years old, pissed off that things weren't going my way. And I was nicknamed Brat pretty early on, probably for a good reason. But yeah, at age 6 too, I remember my brother, we knew where the cough syrup was. Cough syrup was on the top shelf in the kitchen. And there was just one night, I guess the parents weren't, you know, my mom wasn't home or something, and I asked him to go up on the counter, and we split the bottle of cough medicine. My mom came home, saw the empty bottle, we got our stomachs pumped. But again, what is that? You know, so when I read in the big book in early sobriety, we're irritable, restless, and discontent. I thought, oh, not just when I was drinking. Like, this is like, far back, I was irritable, restless, discontent. Some people know. Some people that manifested later, you know. I learned in AA too, I don't have to identify with everything. All I need to identify with is the allergy, the obsession of the mind. And when I wanted to stop, I couldn't stop on my own power. Just couldn't. You know, I learned that hard drinkers, when given sufficient reason, they can stop. I used to think my stepdad was an alcoholic. He had the bottle of gin under the kitchen sink. I saw him sip at that thing all day long. His red was skin. His skin was red, you know, and he wasn't health-wise. He always had stomach issues. Like, it looked like life was hard on him, you know, and I used to think, oh, he's an alcoholic. But he wasn't. He got lung cancer later on in life, and given sufficient reason, he stopped smoking, he stopped drinking. He died an earlier death from cancer, probably because of the toll on his body, but he didn't turn into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde like I did. I would take a drink, and I could even stop at the second one midway sometimes. Other times, I never even meant to have the first sip. And then I had to recollect what happened the last 3 days. Like, I was just one of them. And when I drank at school, I remember just drinking at school, and it was back in the day, North Penn High School in Lansdale. And you used to smoke and do whatever you wanted in the courtyard, and I was one of them. And I remember one time the police had to come get me because I was banging my head against the brick wall. I guess I had a little bit too much, and I don't know what I was trying to do by banging my head against the brick wall, but that was me. People are like, she is twisted, you know, like even the drinkers didn't want to hang with me because you never knew what I was going to do. I kind of drew attention. I was also that girl in school that went to the nurse sick, and, you know, I really was sick. And I had a fever, I had the chills, you know, and they thought I was high, so they searched my purse and they found one joint. And I was suspended for 10 days, and they called my mom, and she goes, you're not sick, walk home. So I had a 5-mile walk home with the flu, you know. But when we do a 4-step, you know, it's like we look, you know, I could carry that victim story. Did you know what my mom did? She made me walk when I had the flu. You know, maybe it was my drug history. Maybe it was my drinking history. Maybe it's, you know, maybe she was fed up. At 15 years old, my dad gave me a try. I went to go live with my dad because surely that would fix my isms. You know, he had a house, a wife, and 1 child. Really nice house. And I thought, you know what, surely if I live there, all my problems will go away. Everything will be great. Well, I'm smoking cigarettes, throwing them out my bedroom window. I'm drinking beer with the one girl I found in the neighborhood that drinks beer like I do. And 6 months later, he brought me back to my mom's and said, good luck, she's back, you know. So after that, my mom found Horsham Clinic, which had the adolescent unit. So at 15, I think I spent my 16th birthday there. I was there for 5 months. And I remember them saying, you know, alcoholism, they give you this little card every week and you work on your issues, you know, and my issues back then were my parents, and don't you know, my poor life. And, but I would have never taken alcoholism seriously. You know, it really was, I was emotionally driven to use and drink. That was my fuel, and surely when my emotions settled down, that would all stop. So I got out of there, and then I ended up in juvenile detention center because I couldn't follow rules at home. So I would sneak out. I stole my mom's silver. I robbed people. You know, I had one guy at Penn Foundation, one of the counselors there, came up to me and said, did you drink a lot on the weekends? I went, no, I'll save my story for someone else. You know, like looks are deceiving. But, so juvenile detention center for 3 weeks. I was in Montgomery County, and that freaked me out a little bit because it really wasn't the plan for my life. Like, I really like to have a good time, and I was emotionally disturbed, but I wasn't planning on the whole jail bit. So I was serious. I thought, no, I got to straighten up, you know, and the judge said he'd give me one more chance. He didn't want to see me again. He would send me to Horsham Clinic, so I spent 6 months at Horsham Clinic. So there was a year of my life that I was locked up, you know, as an adolescent. I got out of there, and sorry to say, what do they say? People, places, thing. Like, I didn't get it. The problem was me. You know, the problem centered in my mind. I didn't know it. I really didn't know it. So I got pregnant at 18. I had a baby. That was going to be my next solution. Didn't work because I couldn't even stay sober while I was pregnant. I dropped acid. I did things that no normal person carrying a child would do. But I just lived in this state of irresponsibility. I just wouldn't look at truth. I just lived in the world that I wanted to live in. I had that baby, and he turned out okay. Thank you, God. God has a reason for those who make it and those who don't. It has nothing to do with me being blessed more than anyone else. It's just that God had a plan for Jared to enter this world. And I can't get in God's way, you know? So I had him, and he was not the solution, chasing down his father that I knew 3 whole months before I had Jared. I chased him down, thought if I get married, that'll be the solution. That wasn't the solution. I can go on and on. I was just, what does it say in the big book about in the last analysis it was found, right? I gotta cross off my list on all the things that are gonna make Debbie okay until I just surrender. And with the surrender, I start to accept my condition and the fact that my life driven on my own will, you know, is not sufficient. Self-sufficiency fails me. You know, and there's a different way to live life. And I believe, looking back in my childhood too, there was something about me where I knew this was going to be a tough walk, and I just wasn't signing up for it. And then I made it tougher, you know. It's a cool discovery too when we do our fear inventory and we discover that we create most of the ones that we're writing down. It's like, you know, how did I set the ball rolling? Well, let's see. So yeah, God didn't grace me with sobriety until I was 28 years old. It was November 26, 1992, and I couldn't tell you anything different about that day. It was after Penn Foundation, 2 years after that. I found another man. He was a bartender. He wasn't the one drinking, so surely, and he owned real estate. So I thought, surely if I hang with this guy, then my life will get put together, right? And then he discovered what a drunk I was. But I was pregnant with his child then. So I had a son who was 9 years old, a daughter who was 2 years old from two different fathers. And there was something about, it was October in 1992. I remember driving, I don't remember driving. I remember waking up and asking my son, who was 9, did we drive home last night? And there was something that hit home that day, as if 9 years old was the mark on which I might start affecting his life. It started from day one, but for some reason, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to stop. And I went to an AA meeting. Because of Penn Foundation, I knew where to go. I knew a little bit about, I was ready. And I went to an AA meeting, and I tried. Couldn't get sober, but November 26th, that was the day I took off work. I still had a job. They were questioning, my abilities, my lack of showing up on Mondays and Fridays, and sometimes, only showing up on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But they were all for it. They said, because I was a hard worker. When I was there, I was a hard worker. I think Bill W. put that in his writing so that we would just be, he knows our heads are so big. It's like, yeah, we're special people. I was a hard worker because I had to compensate for not being there Monday and Friday. That's the only reason I was a hard worker. I mean, I would love to think that I was, but so that was the special day, November 26th, and I took a week off work, and I just thought, I just went to meetings with my kids in tow. And I gradually, I was not going to do it the humble right way, because I was scared to death of trusting people. I figured if you're an alcoholic like me, I'm not going to go to you to help me, because you're going to lie, cheat, rationalize, and justify just like I do. I didn't know about the recovered part. So I was just kind of an onlooker, and I saw the steps on the wall, and I thought, oh, the church is tricking us about this God thing. The church wants to get us back in the church, and that's what AA is all about. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I had these two kids, and for some reason, God woke me up to that fact that I needed to do something for them. And I just went and I watched what people did, and I was going to work the steps myself. And there was a small group of people that were going to do it that way with me as well. And thank God for those people. They would show up at my house because I had left my daughter's father. I was in a house in Percy, and they would just show up randomly at my house. And I was busy vacuuming, making straight lines on the carpet so that the inner chaos would settle down the cleaner my house was. And they would just show up randomly, and I hated it, but I loved it. It was like the beginning of the end of isolation from my fellows. These people cared, they showed up, and I did that fellowship thing for a little while. But I wasn't getting better. I was angry. I was just so angry. And I started to become anorexic too. I started to control the food. I didn't have the liquor, so I started to lose weight. And then the more weight I lost, the more powerful I felt. I was just one sick pup, and I didn't know it. I met a guy on a blind date because I told myself, you know what? Financial insecurity started to set in. I owned a house, and I thought, I need financial security. I need to think about this marriage thing, finding somebody, So I went on a blind date, and I got married 5 months later. And then I did the steps. My poor husband, we're still married. I always have to remember to say that part, because when I tell this story, everybody at the end is like, well, are you divorced? Did you stay with him? I'm like, yeah, he stayed with me. I don't know why. I think it's because God just put this cloud over him and just said that she's your responsibility. She's your responsibility. And he did. He gifted me with that, because to me, I don't know why, with the 2 children, 2 different dads, but marriage was till death do us part. I'd never married before, and got married, but then I did the steps. A friend of mine that was one of the fellowship guys had moved to Texas and said he was dying from untreated alcoholism. And he mailed me cassette tapes. They were Joe Hawk and Mark Houston. And they were going through the big book. And it came with a little workbook, and I started listening to those, and I was like, oh my gosh. I started to get lit up. This thing started to be real. But there was a problem, because I did the 4th step. I started writing it out, and I saw what my decision about getting married was based on. And I thought, well, you can't fix that one now. Just keep moving forward, right? So I found this guy in the meetings that talked about the carpenter. And I grew up in a Lutheran church, so whoever talked about the carpenter attracted my attention. So I asked him, I said, I have these cassette tapes. I'm going through the big book. It's awesome. Did you ever do it this way? He's like, no. But I went through. I said, will you sponsor me? And he heard my 5th step, and I did. I made some amends. I got rolling, but I was tucking that little thing about the marriage. I was just tucking that away, because I couldn't. I had 2 different kids from 2 different dads already. And I had in 96 I got married. I had a son in 1997, another son in 1999, another son in 2001. So it was boom, boom, boom. Pregnant in AA, very distracted, just wanting to build this new life. And I was lit up about the steps, but I was more lit up about Debi's new life. And it says we can't serve 2 masters. And I didn't, I started to just manage my life with the 3 kids, and AA was on the side. I would go to my meeting. I only had 1 sponsee back in the day. Only 1. And that was because someone in the room, she raised her hand for needing a temporary sponsor. Someone got up and said, here, I know Debi. She lives in Bala Cynwyd. She's near you. Here you go. That's why I got a sponsor. It wasn't that I was attractive to anybody with my sobriety. I might have said some funny things, and I had a lot of knowledge that I could spew out, but my priorities was my life staying in order and protecting this secret. So needless to say, if you wonder about 15 years of sobriety and a relapse, it's inevitable. For some people, maybe it would have come more quickly. For me, it was slow, because I like to suffer long. You know, I do remember, though, after the relapse, I wanted to look at exactly what happened and when and how. I wanted to understand what was it, you know. And I remember at the 9th year, there's something about the number 9. My son was 9 when I got sober. But the 9th year of sobriety was the fork in the road. I was in AA, and I was lit up, and I was sponsoring the woman, and I would do service. But the more you're in there, the more you have to work it. It was getting harder to hide in the light, you know? And as much as I told myself, I'm just going to be happily married, I'm just going to make do, but all my anger was spewing out on my kids and my husband. And so that fork in the road just started to happen. So it was 14 years sobriety was the last time I went to a meeting. I didn't go to a meeting for 10, 11 months. We had moved. We were in the middle of a lawsuit. My life was horrible. When I first got sober, you would have known my life was horrible. Everything would have showed you that, right? I was young. Everything was a mess. This time I had the house. I had a minivan. You know, I had the 5 kids. They looked good, you know, but I was a shell. And they were pissed at me, because I was pissed at them all the time. I didn't know that the anger was all the stuff in the steps that's supposed to heal and things that are supposed to turn around, right? That weren't turning around. But my life was a mess. My daughter was 18. My son had just joined the Army. My oldest son joined the Army. My 18-year-old daughter couldn't live in the house anymore because it was so unbearable. And then the boys were 7, 9, and 10. And it was a mess. But after the relapse at 10 months, there was one night where state stores were closed. I had started drinking like an idiot with nothing to keep going. So that phenomenon of craving was unbearable. And I just remember thinking, you know what? And there was liquor in my house.
But I knew I was only drinking wine for those 10 months, but the thought came like, I'm going to go for the gin. And then the next thought was, the gin's taking you down. You're going to go down. You're going to go down quick. You have to go back to AA. This is in my mind. So I actually went to an AA meeting the next day. I was like, I can't live like this. I got to go back. I got to go back. And I thought just because I had that idea, I thought, first of all, that I was the one that had the idea. Second of all, I thought that if I just go back to AA, knowing what I know, I could just stop. I couldn't stop. I'd have 3 days, I'd have 5 days, I'd have 7 days. I'd go to the meeting too, and I'd go, I need to quit smoking, I need to quit eating sugar, I need to quit drinking, I need to, and everybody's like, whoa, you know, just like one day at a time. And when I really couldn't get it together, there was a woman in the program. She came up to me and she said, let's have coffee. We sat down, I told her, I don't really think I'm an alcoholic. Because I drank wine, and when it was coming to the gin, I didn't go for the gin, and I'm the one, if I have no control over this, why would I come to AA? She goes, you really think that was your idea? And I was like, well, she goes, I don't think an idea comes to an alcoholic like that. You know what I mean? Let alone the power to carry it out. So it obviously wasn't you, it had generated, it was something else in you. Then she asked, did your husband know you're drinking? I said, oh my God, no, I can't tell him. I mean, we were already on the brink of divorce. My kids hated me. My one daughter was moving out, but no, I can't tell him I was drinking. You know, she goes, you're not gonna get sober until you get honest with your husband. I was like, oh, crud. And I had to get honest with my husband. He goes, I thought you were drinking. It was like, not a big shock. He was probably really hoping it would mellow me out. He would probably wanted me to drink. He was probably like, after, 10 months, like, please, what's taken her so long? Anything to just make her happy, because it was the house we lived in. No, it wasn't good enough. It was the wrong car. It was this or that. I was irritable, restless, and discontent. And that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of a new round of sobriety. And I don't even call it all about sobriety. This was a new God journey. It had been a God journey. You know how we have it's Bill's story in the big book? I was told when I went through the big book, cross out Bill, put your name, Debi's story. All right, get familiar with your story, okay? It's all about me. I wasn't a stockbroker, no. Impeccable tan? Hell yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And I said hell. And I wasn't like him, but oh my gosh, about the decline, about the progression, about everything, that I could identify with. But it's not even Debi's story anymore. It's really God's story. God had a story for me the day I was in my mom's womb. I got to learn that when the 11th step took me back to the church. I got to understand and awake to that this has been God's story all along. He wanted me to wake up to the fact that He's real. He has a purpose and plan in my life. And if I would just stop getting in the way, that we could do some awesome things together. And the most awesome thing, first I'm thinking as a newly sober person, right? It's like, yeah, I'm going to be a speaker in AA. I'm going to be like, I'll put on AA workshops or something, right? He's like, no, I'm going to teach you how to love your husband when you don't feel like loving your husband. Like, those plans were not my plans. Mine, more ego. God's plans are, when people are like, I don't know what His plan is for my life, it's like to love Him and love others. And usually the ones right in front of your face that you can't stand, they're the ones, the reason they're there is like, because if I don't learn how to love them. And you know what the greatest gift of all was? Being an alcoholic. Because if I wasn't, can you imagine I'm already self-righteous. God help me, right? That was one of my main character defects, is this self-righteousness. I'm not righteous. I'm only righteous because He calls me righteous now. But He let me go. He let me live in a gutter. He let me be a homeless person for a while. He let me go to jail. He let me go to 3 rehabs. He let me be known as Effin' Debi. He let me be known as all these people, right, as this character, so that when He did something with my life, I would be a testimony to everybody else about how awesome He is. It has nothing to do with me. Except I'm just showing up as his, he's the principal, I'm his agent. He's the father, I'm his child now. But I tell you what, unless I was groveling on the ground, it doesn't look like a pretty picture, because underneath I'm thinking I'm going to lose all the things I want. And you're right, I lost a beach house, I lost a boat, thank God, that was maintenance. I lost a lot of things, You know what I love? I love just putting a beach chair in my car, in my 2014 Subaru, and driving to Brigantine for the day. There's no real estate tax to be paid. There's no windows to be cleaned. I pack a lunch, I sit on the beach for the day, and then I go home. That's freedom. So God's plan, which didn't look very appealing to me because I was very world-centered, ego-centered, it didn't look grandiose enough. But man, it's amazing. But I couldn't get there on my own either. So my story is when I did come back, I got honest with my husband. It was not fun for a couple years. It was not fun. People ask me, how was that relapse? I go, when the drink went down, it was heaven. They go, you're not supposed to say that in AA. I said, yeah, but it was. I didn't even know I was looking for heaven. That was the thing. I didn't know how badly I needed relief. I didn't know how badly I was suffering. That glass was in my hand. It was down the hatch without me planning a drink that night, not even having any idea that I was going to drink again. So after that, coming back in, I knew what I needed. I wasn't just going to get a sponsor this time that just said, yeah, well, try to call me on Saturdays. I should be home. I needed someone that said, this is what you do, this is when you do it, this is how you do it. Because that's how someone like me, I need structure. And I found someone, it was like 3 months in, 2 months in. I randomly, it was either murder my family or go to a meeting that I typically didn't go to on a Sunday night. And I went to that meeting, and there was only one woman in the room, and she was the speaker because the speaker didn't come that night. And that's how I met my sponsor. She had a twinkle in her eye. She had a proposed solution. She said she had been in the program 18 years and that she wanted to kill herself. But she went through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. She didn't just go through the book. She didn't just read it. She did what it said. And she had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And I went up to her after the meeting. I was scared to death. I said, will you sponsor me? She said, yes. And then she said, you have a big book? I said, yes. She told me to read certain pages. She gave me her address. And she said, I'll see you on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And then I thought, oh my God, she's serious. But I needed serious, but it also scared me to death, and that's what she did. What surprised me then most, and I tell people all this, I was a big book thumper. When I became born again in the church too, 2014, I told everybody, all about Jesus. That's who I am. When I'm lit up, I go tell you. But I forget about how the maturity and the emotional maturity has to settle in, right? So the fellowship in AA and the big book and the power to carry it and the service, it's all one big picture of what God's plan is for all his people everywhere. It's how he designed a church. AA mimics it better than a lot of churches out there, but there are churches that actually do this thing like we're doing it, except it's all inclusive, which is amazing. I can take what I got in here, I can go there, it all becomes one picture, and then I have a purpose in the whole world. Not just alcoholics. I can talk about human nature and all the other little fun isms and stuff that we carry around, But when I went to her house and she actually opened the door, like the third time she had asked me to meet, I think I cried that day because I thought, I started to trust God. Like everybody can talk about God, and I believed in God. Like I said, I grew up in a Lutheran church. It just wasn't exemplified for me. Nobody would walk my walk with me. They would just tell me, go walk like a good person. And I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone to walk with me, So I started to trust God through the process of even a sponsor just opening up the door and actually following through. But I will tell you this too, there were other times where I sat in a cafe and I waited for my sponsor to show up and she forgot. But she told me from day one, I am not your God. I'm human, I'm going to fail you. guess what? You better get a network of people, because sometimes I'm not available, but they will be. They're going to be your people. And I didn't even have to put an ad in the paper. They came to me. Like, I got a home group at Malvern Center Clubhouse at the 9 a.m. Monday to Friday. And then a year in, I got the home group at Valley Forge Monday night, 7 p.m. And there were certain people that were a little bit ahead of me, a little bit behind me. And then when I was writing my 4th step and I was going through, through the writing, that's when I was told I could start to sponsor my first person, because she said, you're going to stay 1 step ahead, and now you're going to have motivation to do that. I may not know a lot of what to tell her, but my sponsor said, you call me, you call your network. You say, I don't know, but let me find out for you. That's how you do this thing. But it was jumping into service, to get a home group, to serve in the home group. I used to think, my God, my house is a mess. My husband wants a divorce. We're in the middle of a lawsuit. My father-in-law just died. I'm like, and you want me to empty the trash cans? And you want me to go to the prison? How could I possibly have time to do that? And it's funny, when we do God's work, He moves the clock. He seriously does. The more I did His work, the more time I had. And then, believe it or not, the house being cleaned wasn't as meticulous as I needed it, because the chaos started to clear up in here, and I didn't need to control the outside of my environment so much, because I was starting to gain some peace on the inside, and I didn't rely on everything on the outside to give me that peace. But yeah, it was hard walking the walk. It was hard having a spiritual awakening. And I went back to church. My family didn't want to participate in it. We tried together as a family. I had a dream of where we were going as a family. That dream didn't happen, but that's okay, because God's teaching me a whole bunch of lessons in the midst of, I think His greatest lesson is we can't do this alone. But just like the big book said, when they first got sober and they were at war and they didn't have meetings and they didn't have cell phones and they didn't have big books, they stayed sober. Why? Because it's about a personal relationship with God. I'm going to have God no matter where I am. So if the enemies were in my own home, so to speak, God showed me a way through it. I made my closet a prayer closet. So that would be my escape plan. So I would sit at the dinner table, and when they would start mocking me, praying or doing whatever before dinner, and it got a little too overbearing, I would just get up. No more hissy fits. Early on sobriety, there were hissy fits. There was door slamming, there was stuff like that. But God taught me over time, just remove yourself. I kept demanding other people change. I kept demanding you leave the room. Oh, I cooked dinner. No, Debbie, you can leave the room. But I have rights, No. The prayer closet was a much better space anyway than sitting at the dinner table. Honestly, His plan is way better. It's way better. I can go on and on with stories, sobriety stories. I'll just tell this one. I remember so I'm in the 11th step. I'm working the 11th step, and I was getting a little frustrated because I would end up with the same things, kind of failures for the day, how you chalk things up, I did this, But it's not about me doing good and then me doing bad. It's where I'm weak and where I'm strong, where God wants to build character. And then if something keeps showing up on that 11th step inventory, there's usually the 6th and 7th step teaches there's a root. I kept wanting to cut the branch off. He wanted to get to the root, So I just wanted to clean up these behaviors I had. He said they originated in a false belief, in a lie deep down. And emotionally, you're always going to react the way you don't want to react until you take a look at that root and then speak truth into it. And some things, I just felt like I was caught in a cycle. But that 11th step in the big book, it's a lot more than just inventory and a lot more than just big book. It asks you to ask your spouse to join in morning prayer or evening prayer. So I did this thing with my husband. He wasn't a prayer guy, but I was like, let's just hold hands and let's say what we're grateful for today. So we would do that. And then I was like, I really want to go back to church. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I'm kind of pissed off about some things, but I want to, and I just started on this church journey. And I went back to a Lutheran church, which I said I was not going to go back to. But it was after church one day, I'm driving home. My mother-in-law had her standard tea time at 1 p.m. every Sunday. And I was on my way back from church, and I was passing this building, and there was a guy sitting under the tree to my right-hand side. I saw it looked like a homeless guy. And I'm driving on my way home, and I get a nudge. You need to stop and ask him if he needs anything. And I'm like, oh, no. Tea time's coming. I can't. What if he says he needs a ride in a car? What if he's like a mass murderer? What if he says he needs money? How much money do I give him? I don't know what to do. Next time, God, I promise you, I'm your girl. So I kept driving home, and the nudge got stronger. I was like, son of a gun. So I drove around the block, and then I slowed down as I was approaching him, and I got all afraid again. I don't know what I was afraid of. And I just kept driving, and again the nudge was like, seriously. So I turned around, I parked the car across the street, kept the car running, and I walked across the street, and I'm like, excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you. I was just wondering, do you need anything? And he just sat there, he's under the tree with his bicycle and his backpack, and he's goes to his chin, he's like, no, not really. And I said, he goes, well, I could use a job. I'm out of work. I could use a job. And I said, I just got back. I'm on my way back from church. And they have a bulletin board, like, do you cut grass? Do you do anything? I could put your name up there, maybe, something like that. And he goes, what church do you go to? And I said, I don't really belong. I'm just like, it's, St. John's in Phoenix. He goes, oh, St. John's. You just started going back? And I go, yeah. For half an hour, he pulled out his Bible, and he taught me more about God and the Bible than I had learned at the church previously. And we were friends. We introduced ourselves to each other. He goes, my name's Sammy. I said, I'm Debbie. Seriously, is there anything you need? He goes, no. But you know what? I appreciate you asking. And then he starts to clap his hands, and he goes, you passed the test. He wanted you to stop, and you did. And I was like, oh my God. And I went home, and I'm like, this God thing is for real. It's for real. I have bumped into Sammy more often than not. We have the best conversations in the parking lot about God. He'll be like, what book are you reading today? And I'll tell him what I'm reading. And it's just awesome. I have tons of stories about how God just keeps showing up. And my favorite saying of all, and I used to hate slogans, because when I was a big book thumper, I thought they were a waste of time. People get serious, read your freaking book. But they would be like, don't quit before the miracle. And why it's my favorite saying is because I was going to quit before the miracle, I can't tell you how many times. And there was one time I was sitting in the meeting, and it was in the back row, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't. It hurts too, but I can't do this anymore. And I was just thinking, I'm just not coming back. This love thing's not for real, this God thing. And somebody passes a note to me, and it was a guy named Chipper in my home group who sits on the opposite side against the back wall that always kept his eye on me. And it was a note that said, don't quit before the miracle. And again, it was just another God manifestation. It was like any time I really needed affirmation, he wants me to step out in faith, and then he reveals. It's awesome. I used to have that twisted, reveal and I'll show up, I'll be your girl. He's like, no, step out. And when I show up, I'll show up, So I'm just here to tell his story through Debbie, a drunk like me. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, good evening again, everybody. My name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Debbie for coming out here tonight, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery to our group here. A couple quick announcements and we'll get out of here. The food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock every week, so if you want to show up early, join us, enjoy the refreshments we put out. There's always a meeting after the meeting, so if you are new, there'll be a whole group of us hanging out here. We'd love to talk with you, get you some numbers, get you some meetings, get you involved in this thing. It's customary for us to thank our speakers. They come here on their own time and expense, so we'll usually form a line in the front here, and we'll thank our speakers. Thank everybody for helping out with the meeting. Thanks to our greeters, our readers. Thanks to Ms. Kay for taking care of the kitchen there. And let's thank our speaker, Debbie, one more time. And if you do care to join us, we have a beautiful way of closing down the meeting. Oh yeah, we're circle up. And we'll close down the meeting, as always, with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father,